right, we are live.
Hello, everybody. Ooh, I hear echo, Callie.
Huh?
I said, I hear echo.
Really?
A little bit, yeah. It's back and forth, but it's okay. We'll just keep going and see.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. It's been so long. I was just looking back, Callie, on the last time we had a show, and it was back at the end of June. So,
2023.
yeah, it's
Over
been
6
so
months.
long. If you're live, say hi. We're gonna get started in a second here. We're just kind of sharing it into our own page. Please help us share as well.
I know. I don't even know how to do this anymore.
I know. It's been a minute.
Okay. And it's quite late. Quite late
I
our
know.
time.
Jo,
So.
du kommer då chatta Minnesota eller ja. Okay, I'm almost done here.
I just shared it into my personal.
Yeah. All right, so we actually are coming on because there has been a lot of things happening in our Hmong community, actually, within like the last, sorry, really close, within like the last couple of months, yeah. I feel like ever since
week, there was like,
I know,
I feel like
new
the
stuff
last
comes
week
up
there was
all the
like,
time, but I think there's just been a lot happening, and I know we've been kind of on hiatus for a while, and I think just most recently something happened that kind of tugged both our hearts. And we've had quite a few people actually message us to see if we were going to do something or have a show or talk about it and just kind of give our thoughts on the things that are happening. And so, I think this is something that impacts the entire community. And we just wanted to come on and kind of talk about the issue at hand. And for those of you watching, if you would like to come on with us, this is a space for all of us to, have a well thought out like conversation, right? And just really be open about the situation, how we could work together as a community to make things better and support each other. Whether you are a Hmong brother or a Hmong sister, we welcome you into the conversation. And so, with that, Callie, I'll kind of pass it over to you to kind of brief everyone on just the topic of what it is that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so like Olivia said, there's been quite a bit of things happening in our community. Good things too, not just all bad things. I know that sometimes we tend to like some of the things that come up tend to be a little bit more negative, but we do have quite a bit of positive things as well. But unfortunately, tonight's topic is really something that I guess I don't want to call it like a bad. I think everything is a learning opportunity for us all, and so there was a video that surfaced that was reported basically showing this gentleman during the New Year overseas, basically beating what we believe is his wife. Who we believe is his wife. So basically hitting her, punching her, using an umbrella to hit her, and tons of people recording it. Nobody really joining in or like coming in to help her at all. Sometimes in the videos, there are even people who, it might be another person that wants to come in and help. And then, one of the other person basically saying no. So there's just so many things to kind of like talk about this and like, just figure out like what we would do in a situation like this,
Mhm.
right? And I think part of that again is just like it's not to like finger point, but again, it's like a learning opportunity. And I feel like if we don't talk about this kind of thing, then if it happens in front of us, I feel like we're less likely to even know what to do, right? I think it's
Right.
so easy to look at that video and say, oh my gosh, like, why do people do this or that, right? But I feel
Mhm.
like sometimes like if you're the person that's seeing that, you might be in shock yourself, and so you don't know how to react. And so again, I
Yeah.
think part of that is really like, discussing it and kind of getting through some of that trauma of even seeing something like that happening and figuring out how do we, what do we need to do to you know take action next time instead of just recording and watching.
Yeah. So I think the big question then, Callie, is would you intervene? And if you do, like at what point do you intervene? Because I feel like that's kind of like what stops people from um intervening in this situation because La Chipona, right? Like you don't know when not just specifically that situation, but I think anytime you see someone in that type of situation, you never know what tuning and tao yun na tao tuning na, right? Like you don't know what type of weapon they have. You don't know if la lu zhou lo mo ya you pon ye se you mu ju in ji le hai jing tao you there, right? Or even for men. And so I think that's also another reason why I feel like a lot of people they don't jump in and help because there's a possibility of them also getting injured or possibly get killed also. And so, I think the really big question is should you intervene? And if you do, like how would you approach that or when would you intervene? In your specific perspective, what are your thoughts on that?
When I was thinking about it, I guess I like put myself in her shoes and really thought like if that was me, I would want somebody, like I would want people to intervene, like I would want people to come and help me, because when you look at that video, it's traumatizing for
Mhm.
me as a woman to watch that video and to see her getting beat, hit, punched, kicked, with an umbrella as well. I can't remember if there was a rock used, but like uh, when I was just watching that, I was just kind of imagining like if that was me, I would wish somebody would come in at some point to separate us and to help me, right? Like I feel like there's just yeah, and like so I think the first question is yeah, I would as a woman I would intervene, but like you said, I think it's easy again to watch that video and to say like because he's a smaller person, you might be like, okay, I would totally, but like you said, it could be any situation, right? That's like
Mhm.
one example of what we saw, but like it could be somebody who has a weapon or who is a lot bigger or who's a lot, like
Yeah.
that could overpower someone like me. And so I think part of that is like finding other people to help you too, and like when it's so public like that, like there's so many opportunities that so many people could have come in together and
Mhm.
like separate the two of them. And I feel like that would be the answer for like, as a woman, just finding other men or finding other women. And I know we talked about this earlier. You said like you've seen situations where you couldn't get anybody to help, right? And so I think that's part of why we do need to talk about this, and we do need to like figure out like when people ask for help, like
Mhm.
even if you're in child law, I feel like there is power in number, and so even if it's five of you against one person, again, we're not asking you to beat another person up. It's really separate and then like figure out after that, right?
Yeah.
And to kind of assess the situation. How about you?
Um, I think I think it really is based on each situation. Because I have seen a lot of especially here in the states, I have seen a lot of situations where Lashintao, and I don't want to put myself in that position because you yin your punya, so you lose your lawyer, right? And I'm not going to be um intervening in that space, depending on the situation. But I think it does offer an opportunity for you to call 911 or kind of like what you said, try to see if you can get other people to kind of help like separate the people. But I wouldn't I wouldn't just especially to record like I feel like if you are that close to a situation where you are recording and you're live or whatever and you're just talking about like, oh, Jenny, you want the bunny and then
Yeah.
then go do something about it. Just don't record and say those things because I kind of like you, I put myself in that situation too, where it's like she's someone's daughter, she's someone's sister, she's someone's aunt. And even though like she's someone else's, right? And so I feel like it's just based on situation. I think certain situations, if you could intervene, by all means, please do. Not by yourself, maybe with other people, and situations where it's not safe to intervene. Um, Especially here in the States, like, call the police, call
Yes.
someone. I don't know, And I think too, like when I watched that video, Dun Tsai Nana, she was so like I think 你啲做乜你啲過呀你啲全部我哋家得先你估住這門鐵巴黎的 right? Like there's so many people nearby that you can clearly see, but I don't know what made her not want to like just I don't know, like
I
ask
think she's
for
like,
help too.
yeah, like honestly, I mean, from the video, I'm gonna just make some assumptions, and I could
Yeah.
totally off assumptions, right? But like, clearly, like he's not afraid to do that in the first place, right? He did that very publicly, which
Mhm.
to me means he's done that before. He's
Yeah.
again like he it just seems very natural for him to do that, again, which
Yeah.
to me signifies that he's done it before.
Right.
And then I think the fact that like I felt like she just shut down. I feel like that's happened before, and that's what happens, right? He hits and she just shuts down, right? She's not going to do anything because she knows better. And so I feel like that is kind of just what happened. It's just like, and it seems like she's like hasn't had help, like whether that was in their homes with other people. And clearly, like that sends a message that even in public, no one's going to help you, right? Like even with people recording you, with people around at like a New Year, no one's actually going to come help you. So whether you scream or do anything, like you said, like the record down that and as a person, like as that woman, I'm sure you can hear people saying stuff, but no one's actually coming to help you, right? And so it's just like, at what point, like must you like shout out for people to help you? It's just like because people can clearly see that already. And so I just feel like when I think about that, again, I don't know enough about like domestic violence and like how their responses are and things like that, but I just feel like it seems so natural what happened, that it's happened before, and that's the response that has always kind of happened,
which is so unfortunate, y'all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like it's such an unfortunate situation. I just think back to like watching it when you text me, and I was just so like irritated and frustrated and angry, like all sorts of emotions of just like, oh my gosh. And then later, even seeing like different angles of, people recording and like when they were on the hill versus like when they were walking on the street and like, you can tell multiple people were recording. And then to see later on, like all of the different angles and views of people, it's just like, it's unfortunate and very sad that she wanting like, even though they lost separate on the there was like no one comforting her. It was just like like in her face, and people saying, oh, kaya nito pa niya la, kaya ay nito rong ka, or just like, oh, take a like, I feel like that, like it made me really sad for her that instead of like hugging her to make her feel some sort of comfort, they were just people making her feel a lot more uncomfortable, right? Like her hair was in her face. She was trying to block it so no one can see, her tears, just her facial expressions. I think just even talking about it now, like I'm getting a little choked up because I feel like, I don't know. I wouldn't know what I would do, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just gonna show some of the comments, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, is it Gambal? Gambal, yeah.
Hello.
Hi, we have Lisa. So Lisa said, I honestly think that some people still have that mindset that it's okay to just watch and not get involved. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think like we were talking about, like I think a lot of people have they don't want to get involved. They don't want to. I feel like I think the angry part of me is just like we just didn't want to offend him, right? Because then you think he's
Yes.
angry, and so then we don't want to step in and do
Some-
something that could have.
yeah.
And it's like, really, like at what point? Like I really just felt like she could probably die there, and people would still be recording and being like, "Is she okay?" Like because it just the way that he was. I mean, gosh, like the umbrella, like he broke his umbrella hitting her, it was just completely horrible.
Yeah.
So Gumball says it's likely he's abusive and people haven't helped her, so she probably thinks no one will help. Clearly, no one helped her in public.
Yes.
Yes, which is like the worst thing because again, even as a woman, like watching that, like it just sends a message that if that happens to me, no one's gonna help me too, right?
Mhm.
Like I just feel like there's a bigger message, and of course, like we shouldn't think like that, but like the fact that I mean, the way that he was hitting her was just so, I mean, out of line.
Right.
And like and again, no one does anything, like Lisa
Yeah.
said, watching the video seems like she's been through it so much that she's given up and doesn't seem to care because even
Yeah.
her parents and family doesn't care. And again, so I do just want to say we're making assumptions here with that
Yeah.
point. But, again,
Well,
his reaction, like, again, because it's just like, sometimes you think people do that in private, right? Because like you're hiding stuff, but like he's so I don't know. I don't want to say brave because brave isn't a word, but like Kaylee and I don't yeah, and like and he probably feels like because he can do that maybe in the privacy of their home where there might be other people who doesn't do anything. He feels like even in public he can do that, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Gumball says everyone keeps talking about what she did or what the reason was. To me, I don't care what the reason is. There's no
Right.
justification for domestic violence.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
There is no
It's not a good enough reason to be beaten in public,
yes.
and shamed. And then, I think Gumbo Callie and I were just talking about that of like, it doesn't matter what she did. Because for all we know, it could be nothing. It could just be something so little that triggered him to all of a sudden be super abusive, or it could be something that is really extreme that triggered him. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter, right? Like it does not deserve that sort of like beating in public to be put all over Facebook. Like it does not matter.
Yeah. Or in private, right? Like
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter.
that was like very public, but it's just like that does happen in private.
Yeah.
And like because that was in public, it's just like I can't imagine what happens in private.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it's just like that level of like violence towards her was just crazy. And then so I know I wanted to back up a little bit and just talk about the fact that that happened overseas. And we don't want to necessarily distinguish between over there and over here because we know it happens quite everywhere. And so I think that's kind of a moot point I've seen a couple of different videos of just people coming out and comparing, over there and over here. And honestly, at the end of the day, I feel like it happens everywhere. And sometimes it happens with, women towards men too. So I guess I want to just bring that up of just not saying that this is, something against like men. It's like what that just happened from a woman towards a man as well. But I think the message is beyond just like where it happened because it just happened everywhere.
Well, and I think I think this is kind of like the most recent news on just this type of things, but I think social media has impacted in so many ways because to you Paulina live or recorded gay you in your you in because you like see it, right? We also have to remember that in the States we have murder suicide left to right all the time too. And that's kind of how it starts. And so those things you don't hear about, at least, on social media until it happened now, right? So, I've heard a lot of folks going on live or like reading through comments talking about Mont Blanc, but you guys, we have it here in the States too. It's not just Mont Blanc. It's just that it's not like, being showcased on social media. We've got people shooting up their partner, killing their partner and their kids, and then committing suicide themselves. It happens everywhere. And I think we have to really not like say, oh, it's only Mont Blanc. It's like Momiga do it, Mont Yalan do it. Like it's everywhere. It's not a specific, like it's not country specific to Hmong in Laos versus like Hmong in America. I think it happens. And so just wanted to acknowledge that this isn't saying, along with what the other videos are saying of Mont Blanc, but more so saying like the situation at hand and how do we intervene. And then, the social media recording too, like, what are your thoughts on that, Kelly? Because I just feel like I got so aggravated when I saw that of just the amount of people pulled out their phone recording. And I think even like the one where the woman was in the car with her husband and then they stopped the car. And, like when she went in, you can clearly see people from the other side, like trying to get their view of her face or like pushing through the people who was surrounding her to get in just to get like a glimpse of what she looked like. So at what point is it really recording for, for legal reasons of like, this is what happened versus getting like a like or a view on like social media?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was probably like to me beyond like the violence. I think that was the most disgusting part for me. Like of just like I think when I saw, yeah, at the very end where they were separated and there's all these people surrounding her, and they're getting super close to her, like no one's comforting her. Everyone's got their phone out, and it's just, I mean, I think phones in the first place are such a disconnect for us, like as human beings. And when that something like that is happening, and then the phone, like I keep just putting myself in her shoes of like how I might feel if I'm in that situation and there's a bunch of screen in my face, like trying to get my face, trying to get me. I just feel like that is the most disgusting part to me, because it just shows how you know and mean we are. Yeah, and just like we're not people anymore, right? Like people don't do that, and I just feel like that was just like the fact that it's just like, yeah, he's guilty, but everybody else is also guilty of just standing there and recording it. And sometimes it's like you think people like plugging the hole, as like a way of showing love and care, and then you realize, yeah, they're actually just trying to see her face and record her face, right? And it's just so sad that yeah, because you don't need a gazillion phones like that at the end of the day, right? Again, these strangers, they're asking her these questions that are just kind of, like you said, the question of like, yeah, like if you're his wife and his girlfriend, like, does that justify like if he can hit me or not? Like if I'm his girlfriend versus his wife, or like what I did to deserve that. Like, I think those are just kind of like, I think we need to like recognize like what kind of message that sends. And because it was so public, what that message also sends to all the women who view that of like, wow, because I would think, other women have heard those same kind of questions before, right? And so I think just like recognizing that and getting away from that, but just the video recording was just like, really that is not a human response to watching someone be hurt. I just feel like that is just so cold and so yeah, disgusting.
Well, it's a video recording, and then it's also like the what they're saying in the video too, of like, you know, or, you know, let's not intervene, none of our business. I think those types of things too, it does make you, like you said, the message it sends out to women of like, if something like this did happen to me, would people stop and help me? You know, back on it, right? Like you just don't know. Yeah, I think when I first watched it too, I was extremely sad for her in the sense that there were so many people who would pull out their phone to record, but not one person stopped to like help.
Right. And like, and I think the saddest, there's so many sad things. I keep saying the saddest things sad. They're all sad.
Yeah.
But it is sad to also hear the women that stop the men from helping.
Yep.
I feel like we need to, like, as women, we need to like shake through king. Because I just am like, wow, like, you know, your husband or your whoever, the man that you're with is like wanting to go help, and you as a woman is the one that's saying no. You know what I mean? And I just feel like, wow, like as another, like as a woman to another woman, like that's what we're saying. It's just like, if I see another woman, and I'm with a man, I'm gonna tell my man not to help you know? And like, I just feel like that's such a, gosh, like it's just kind of like, I don't know why, you know, I'm so curious, like why another woman would like not have that empathy to like recognize that woman needs, the other woman needs help, you know?
Well, I think it's hard because Yuji Sali Lasat, right? Like everyone has their own way of thinking and their own perspective. So I think it's hard. We'll just never understand why some women would, you know, think that way. I don't know. It is very sad to hear that, of them stopping their husbands to intervene, you know? I just always look at it like, I know I don't have any daughters, but I just look at like my nieces, where if it's like, if it was one of my nieces, I would hope that another woman is the one to be like, please go help her, you know? If it wasn't for the man themselves to do it. Like, I hope that another woman would see it, and be the one to speak up, even though right? But that she would go look for help to stop someone from, you know, beating the crap out of that woman. So, but you know, I think we live in different countries, different times. It may be different for some of them there. So,
but I just, yeah, I mean, yeah, I just hope that like as women we think about that, you know, because I just feel like, you know, they do each other, and kind of like when I think about Hmong people, like it's just like, yeah, they each other, then other people are not going to help us, right? And so the same goes with like smaller and smaller groups. Like if you don't help your family, who's going to want to help your family? If you don't help other women, who's going to want to help women, right? If you don't stand up for each other, like I think we need to like, you know, think about that, and like how come we, you know, we are the ones that are preventing that from happening, of helping, you know, that I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of, I don't know, but something deeper of why we won't, you know, let the man that we're with to help. But I think we need to change that.
And then what about like, you know, like after all of that, I saw a couple of different videos circulating through on social media too, of like her family, like then coming into the hospital and like giving her money and like recording all of the bruises on her back, and then, you know, saying stuff like, what are your thoughts on that specifically?
Oh, I know it sounds like we're just like bashing on, okay, I guess this is like what not to do, right? In the case of
Yeah.
um,
But I
but
think
like,
but I think it's also good to have like healthy conversations about,
yeah,
like
I agree.
what like if something like that happened to your family, a family member, like what should you like at what point is it like, okay, put it on social media, or is this is like super intimate, it's like at what point do you not do those types of things? This is a lessons learned for all of us, honestly.
Yeah, okay. It's so hard to know what people's intent
Hmm.
is, right? But I do feel like sometimes it's just like for clout or, like for self-serving purposes, because it's just like, "Yoko sapanya, teko bako chini to more record." I don't know if that's to like generate more people to help, but you can just say, you can simply just ask for donations if that's what you're needing. But to have, because I mean, I feel like I if I'm in a hospital, I don't think I want anybody coming there, whether it's I'm sick or I just got,
Yeah.
like something violated. I wouldn't want any of that out there because it is so personal, so private, and you did Samoa, like I would imagine like if that happened, like you Samoa, you Dushia, you all these things. And so I just feel like all the recording, it just feels so much like it's so self-serving to whoever whether it's to say, oh, I helped this person with all this money, but I just feel like it's so personal. And let's see, so I want
Yeah.
to bring up Gambao, where she says consent asks if it's okay to do it, respect the survivor. So yes, I would hope that she has agreed to it. Nonetheless, I think there's a way to do it, like again, whether it is that they're, needing money or something like that. I'm pro GoFundMe and fundraisers and requests for money. So that's kind of my stance overall on that. And so I don't, I'm not going to like say that I don't do that. But I agree that consent is really important. And again, the way that you do it so that it brings attention to the issue and to the purpose of it, but not
Mhm.
to, because I feel like if that was me, I wouldn't want to be used to, do
Yeah.
that, right? Use it as an
Mhm.
example. I feel like it's already embarrassing enough after what
Yeah.
happened, in my opinion.
I couldn't really watch the video because I just felt like, or the videos, I should say, because I felt like it was just so inappropriate and violating of like her privacy that
Yeah.
I just felt really grossed out watching it because it was so I don't know. I just feel like I think again, just putting myself in her shoe, I wouldn't want that out. Like if anything, I would want it to be a little bit more um because I don't know, just shorter videos maybe. I mean, because it was blasted all over social media, like maybe make a statement and have pictures, but I wouldn't like go live and like have my family members like say things. I feel like
Right.
that's more, if you want that to happen, then call up the family meeting and let's have the meeting and not stream it live instead of like having family members say all these messages and stuff. I feel like it doesn't really serve its purpose.
Right, because I feel like it's already, and she's
It's already
probably
sensitive. And
traumatized,
yeah.
so it's just like she's probably just still in shock about what's happened and like the fact that people, and then as Ikuntai, I know that is hard to when you have all these people coming at you, it's hard to like say no. I think it's hard to stand up for yourself when all these people
Mhm.
want to do all these things and like so I can see where she might just feel like I just have to go along with all this. And especially if it's like a victim of abuse, like
Yeah.
you just have to go with what everybody else is doing. You don't have a voice and you already feel again like it's like everyone's doing stuff to serve their own purpose, right? It's nothing for you, it's not to
Yeah.
care for you, it's not to care about you. I want to put this comment where Kambal says we shouldn't have to have daughters, sisters, etc. to understand that treating another human being like that is wrong, just like we shouldn't have to have a special relationship with
Mhm.
LGBTQ folks or other races and ethnic groups to understand that this behavior is just wrong. You're absolutely right, Kambal. Like it's as like a human to another human, uh, there's just some things that are right and wrong, right? And
Yeah.
like when we see that, it clearly like, and I think I do appreciate how vocal like Hmong people in the U.S. have been about this, but it's
Mhm.
also a good time to look internally
Yeah.
within our community here in the U.S. too, and
Yeah.
recognizing that there's a lot of things that we can continue
Yeah.
to
Thế
fix.
Thế chị hay Thế chị hay mong community họ nó hay kêu chị nên nhau.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like you have to preach. You have to like practice what you preach, right? Like, if you're going to be an advocate for that, like be an advocate for your own family. Like if you see that those things happening, like don't be afraid to call it out, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of want to go back to like her being in the hospital too. Like I don't know if she probably did give consent. I don't know. But I think sometimes when you feel like you don't have a voice, like you
Yeah.
said, you tend to just kind of go with like whatever people are saying for you. And I think that's why it is so important to have itunu or ituneng how yucheneng where they are loud and they are going to stand up for you. And if you don't have someone like that, like be that person for someone else. Um, because I just feel like if you feel like you don't have a voice, but you also don't have someone strong in your family to protect you either, you're an easy target for a lot of different things. I'm a
Yes.
true believer that if you have people who love you a lot in your family, whether that's your mom, your sister, or your brother, they will be that voice for you. And so, I think we have to take a look really close within our own family to see if we do have that someone. And honestly, like even if you don't, be an advocate for yourself. Look within your family, call those things out. Because I think a lot of people are very quick to go on social media and say all of these things, but they tend to forget that it's also in their backyard.
Yeah. And I think the sad thing about when it's in your family is that sometimes we justify it, right?
Mhm.
Because they are like this or they're like that. So I can see why this happens. No, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. Like I feel like that is not like, like
Right.
that's not those justifications aren't justified in that.
Mhm.
Um, so Gumball says, same Olivia, I didn't watch the videos and I just couldn't, I saw bits here and there because it
Yeah.
was just all over my feed. And
Yep.
so I
Same.
think she's saying in reference to the ones at the hospital.
Mhm.
But it was just completely self-serving and just did not seem genuine at all.
Yes.
And how they were doing it. Let's see. So, Tria says, my opinion, the Hmong community is quick to record, go live for their selfish reason, but not to actually help the victims. That is so true. Honestly, like Facebook's $1, $2 is not worth like it's just not
Yeah.
worth like recording it live. If that's what
But
people are trying to do,
no,
trying
and
to make like
I think for us it's not worth it, but I think to some of those people over there it is for them. That's why they don't care. And I think that's also the reason why so many Hmong people in America are angry at that situation over there, right? Like I remember I was watching a live and I don't remember who it was where she was like, I'm not sending them money.
yeah.
Like they got to learn how to love and support each other. It can't always be us that
Yeah.
helps relieves their problems. They got to figure it out because I think when things happen over here, we figure it out. They don't help us. And so why should we help them? Like they got to go figure it out, which in a sense I agree. But at the same time, it's not, I don't know. I'm looking at the situation at a whole of just like, yeah, 你应 happened, but again, it's going back, like, we got to look in our own house to see what's happening, because then when we're saying, when we are dividing it by country, shit, we have just as much fucking problems as everyone else. Shit's happening in our own house we don't even know about. We're not willing to call it out or have those conversations. We're victim blaming all the damn time. We've still got men, Hmong men, like saying certain things. We still got Hmong women not supporting, so there's so much to unpack, so much for us to really look at and talk about. So
yeah, I mean, I definitely think with the recording, it is a good chance for us to like just recognize and see, like, hopefully, right, if that happens over here, the people here will not record, right? So I think it's just kind of like that learning opportunity again, like, baby ball, so then we should recognize that as an opportunity. Again, this is different from like gang fights. I think we talked about that earlier. Those are a little bit different. I'm not saying record those, but I'm just saying I wouldn't jump into those. But I think when it comes to like,
get involved in.
That's right. But I think it is a good opportunity, like whether it's over there or over here, just like, like getting your phone out to record when someone's needing help is self-serving. It's not helping anyone. It's not, because if it was you in that situation or somebody that you care for, we would hope that, like that person's getting someone to help them versus we're just recording them. Let's see. Tria says, exactly. A lot of our own family won't even step in to help. Why would a complete stranger step in? Yeah, I agree. And I feel like sometimes when it's like family, I think sometimes those excuses get put in, right? Like it's like finding the justification and the reason for people, like things happening to them, when I feel like actually like that's, like aside from that, right? And then I think we talked earlier too, just like if you see people who have relationships that are like that, maybe they shouldn't even be together, right? If someone triggers you enough to like for you to hit them like that, then maybe the best route is just to separate and divorce. And I mean, I know that sounds harsh, but
well, and two, I think because I have seen where couples, they like get into fist fights, and then a lot of people don't get involved because especially they don't get involved because if their daughter is not ready to leave that relationship, it actually makes it worse. And I think that's why a lot of times when you see it, unless the daughter is the one like initiating, and when she does, I would encourage that our Hmong community starts listening, because that's when they're ready. And I feel like a lot of times when it's the daughter that's not ready, or then it gets worse for her. And I feel like that's maybe one of the main reasons why they don't, they let you high. But it's hard.
I think that like, yeah, absolutely. And I think the cycle is hard. It's super hard, but I think continuing to like support that person and be there for them. And then when they're ready, like believing them in that and trying to help them figure out through that. Right. Versus also like being like, well, they're always going to be in that cycle. Well, that's not true. Right. Like, I mean, that could be true for that particular situation, but I think finding out resource and learning more about it so that you can be like an advocate for them and figuring out how to best support them. Because it is, I think sometimes people have to go through their own learning journey to get to a point where they're done.
And I think it's a little different now than it is for like the generation before us too, right? Because I feel like now women are a little bit more vocal, and a lot of the practices within our culture before, it doesn't really quite work for us anymore. And so whereas like our parents, or I think maybe just even like our older siblings, where they kind of grew up in that in-between era, it's still a little harder for them because our practices sometimes really hinders us. It's it's not really in favor of among women, right? Where like then you have to carry the Bondo name, and you know how people are treated in our community. Some people are afraid of that. And if you have children too, oh my, there's just so much to talk about, honestly, if we even go there, right? So
But I think, yeah, I mean, I think those are some of the things that need to be normalized of like,
right.
you know, making it those things okay. Like it's better to kind of like what we always say, right? It's better to have your daughter alive than dead. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
it's better to have your daughter who is divorced than in a really bad situation or really unhappy or really depressed or suicidal or like going through all those things. And I think just recognize like I think having a place for your daughters to come back home, I think
Yeah.
is you know, even them knowing that is a way out, right? And
Yeah.
again, like that's, you know, everybody's got different situations, but I think it's just like knowing that you have a place, a safe place that you could, when you're ready to leave, that you
Yeah.
can go and they will be there for you and they will not judge you, right? Because I think, and I think it is really important to make sure that like when we talk about these things, like the way that we say things too, right? It's just like because of like a person who's going through that stuff is going to be very sensitive to how you say things and how safe they feel around you. And so like when they're trying to like talk to you and like find that safe place in you, if they can't feel that, then it's going to be like, why would I leave this, which is a really bad situation, to come home just to like ma degrade, ma shame, you know what I mean? And so I just feel like it's just like figuring out how you can be like the best support and be that voice for them and be that safe place for them and make them understand that, you know, things will be okay. It's going to be hard as heck,
Yeah.
but it's going to be okay, you know?
Yeah.
So George says our Hmong community has a hard time to escape domestic violence, relationships, marriages. Do not be afraid to reach out for help. There's a hotline if you're afraid, or association will help and guide you in the right direction.
Yeah. I think that's another thing too is yes, and I think it's easy for us here in the States because there are support, there are places where you can call, but it's not quite the same overseas. And so I think when we talk about this, like as a collective, like what could we do as Hmong people to really ensure that you know our Hmong brothers are held responsible and our Hmong sisters are also held responsible, right? Like there are some out there who beat their husbands, and so how do we ensure that, you know, I don't know. I don't think that we could ever make it go away. I think it's just living it out, right? But I think more than anything, it's just how do we then hold ourselves accountable then to react to those things when we see it? How do we
Yeah, and
normalize intervening?
right. And I feel like part of that is like dealing with anger too, you know? Like I was just kind of thinking about that, like just like how angry he was and like and maybe he's seen that somewhere, right? Like he's seen a man beating a woman and has normalized and said it's okay in his head to do it. But I think like a lot of the stuff is like, how do we communicate and how do we express ourselves and like how do we work on some of those things so that when and that your first thought is I'm going to hit somebody, like you know, like dealing with those emotions and figuring out like how do you stop that from happening, you know? And I feel like for you know what I feel like in our community is that we don't know how to fully express ourselves sometimes, right? We don't know how to deal with a lot of those emotions that we suppress a lot. And so it's like figuring out a healthy way to like, you know, communicate and make sure that you're heard, but also like not abuse someone else. I feel like that's a, you know, continual work in progress. But
Well, and I feel like that's not just a Hmong man thing. I think that that's a man thing in general. Even like Mika people too. Like I think men overall just has a harder time being vulnerable and having that space to like talk through their emotions versus women. I think women are just a lot more. It's easier for us to be vulnerable and talk about our feelings and things like that, whereas it's not as easy for men. So and then on top of that, you add the word Hmong in there, and then it complicates things like 100 times.
Right. There's like cultural things and stuff. So Autumn says it's sad, but we still haven't gotten away from the mindset telling our Hmong daughters to wish and they, or instead trying to be a safe place and having their daughters alive instead to stay face. They tell their daughters, once you're dead, we'll come get justice for you. Yeah.
But you know, that's, you know, I think what like when I hear about things like that too, like um it's like yes and no. Cho khó thầu là tôi mới tụi nên tao tuổi ya là chỉ cả for you tụi nên á, vậy you mà li mo block why? Why wait till she's done? Right? Like I've heard of instances too where like you know, where the daughter is or the wife is just so overwhelmed, depressed, suppressed, like in all sorts of ways, and they commit suicide, and then you know, like the husband's family lets you got fall and then it takes like her family to come and have a discussion and then force them to do it. But it's like, but why is that even a question of you doing it or not? You know, like it makes me feel like Hmong women don't really it's so sad to say, but it's just the honest truth about how I feel. I feel like sometimes we're like worthless to our community. And I think honestly, that's why a lot of Hmong women, if they marry out, they don't want to fucking come back. And people get all angry about it. But I mean, you know, then I think we have to take a hard look at ourselves of why people don't want to come back to support their own community. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like this generation is getting better on these things. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of I do think there's a lot of Hmong men that feel the same way that we feel about, you know. So I think like recognizing that our parents' generation, like they're learning and they have a lot of traumas that they haven't fully, you know, dealt with. And so then you know, what we're having to deal with is like a lot of the generation that is a little bit older than us. But you know, I think I just would hope that like you know, like the men like our age or a little bit older who aren't like our parents' generation can like stand up and sit at the table and voice those things, right? Because they have more seniority than us as women. I would hope that they would just not be like, you know, screw the, you know, like the elders. I would hope they would say, you know, like let's kind of figure this out and like let's, because we are the next rising, you know, like these seniority male in the homes. Like I would hope they would, you know, make a place at the table and speak up.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too, like, yes, speaking up and learning the reasons why some of the practices that the Hmong people have are the way that they are. I think it's hard to change something if you don't understand it, right? So nhưng nhiều chủ tâm mấy cho là một cỡ tay cái trai thì là một cỡ tên đời là thì bao lần cho lâu sĩ hay luôn at, right? Because like if you go in flames hot trying to make a change, like it's not going to happen. Right. I know because I've tried that myself. Right?
Well, like, we're going to like I think that the elders like yeah, they don't take criticism well, and they don't stay very you know, they have their ego and their pride, and so when you come in like that, they're automatically like you know, and so you do have to go to your, you know, American schools and learn some techniques and then come back and try to do some reverse psychology and you know, get some buy-in and, you know, do the normal politics stuff, because it is important. And I you know, I do have faith in like our elders and the fact that they are changing. Like I feel like I see that. But you know, I think we also have to recognize that culturally, you know, there's just some things that we have to be cognizant of, and that we can't just automatically like impress the things that we feel like is right to them, right? Because that's not their point of reference. That's not, you know, their intent. And so I think, you know, being strategic in how you come and, you know, talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Gumbao says some family really value their daughters' lives and prefer to have them come back, but there are still families who prefer their daughters to stay and would much rather their daughters be dead than be alive as divorced women. They say Bei Qi Ya Nong Ban Zhao, and they're proud of it. Shaking my head. Yeah, that is true. And again, yes, there are a lot of families that love their daughters. So, you know, that's not to say, I guess I don't want anyone to feel like our conversation says that all Hmong men are certain ways and all Hmong families are certain ways. I think there's a lot of we have very, very great family values when it comes to our community. We have very good community when we do things. Of course, we've seen that with fire and the money that was raised for that, right? Like when we come together, we do things very, very well, and we do them with like Shia law and everything, right? But this is for all the other times, you know, because we would like to have a zero rate of, you know, murder suicide, right? We will, I mean, that would be ideal, is to like not see any kind of domestic violence, for us to be a community that we continue to thrive together and not have to deal with these things. But, these are the things that are still happening, that, it's like one daughter loss is still one daughter loss, like that is still a loss for our community. And so it's like, we do need to still continue to talk about it. We can't just say, oh, well, like this doesn't mean all. Of course not. We're not saying that.
Even though it's, yes, I agree, there's still a lot of room for improvement, right? Like, I think that we have a lot more families now who would welcome their daughters back. I think we've grown so much over the years, and I think it's definitely gotten way, 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 way better, but there's still room to grow. So
yeah. Agree.
Yeah. 個 H 又能幫到你呀 I think 要應其實我能到添嘛，但是嘛 I think sometimes the situation presents you in that way, and that's the better option.
Yes. Right? Completely agree.
So what do you think, what things can we do to kind of help address these types of issues, Kelly? I know we talked a little bit about like looking in your own home and like being that advocate and speaking up, and if it is your brother or sister, like be okay to call them out and create that space to have conversation. But what other things do you think that we can do as a community?
That is a great question, I think, for the audience. If you're listening and please let us know. I think one of the things I really appreciated was a lot of the men, like speaking out. And like, I know there's some men that didn't speak out who also feel that way of just like, oh, I would totally, like stand up for her and stuff. But it's like, it is nice. I think because I'm on social media, it is nice to see that, because it makes me feel like there are people who stand with us, in this. Because if you're silent about it, it just feels like, I don't know where you stand with that, right? I don't know if your first initial thought is like, well, what does she do to deserve that? Because then it creates this space where I feel like I don't know who, like how many men are standing up. So I think I really appreciate just like people speaking up about that and like talking about that. I think that really, again, just having more conversations about it, right? Instead of just like brushing aside and say, well, that's just one incident. I think being able to see that, people standing up for you, I think that's really important.
Yeah. I think too, like if a woman approaches you as a man for help, like help her. I've had a couple of instances where, we would go to parties and stuff, and it didn't happen to me specifically. It happened to someone I knew, but like some guy was like talking to her inappropriately, like hitting on her, like even after she walked away, told him to stop. Like he was completely stalking her, and like she would go to a couple of different guys to ask for help, and like right? And it was so uncomfortable. And finally, like she asked someone, and he looked at him and said, dude, she's not interested in you, stop talking to her. And he like took her, and and then the guy went away. But like it took her multiple times asking someone for help before someone would help her.
I agree. Taking it seriously when someone says that, and like not judging anyone by what they dress. I think that happens too, right? Like if someone is dressed a certain way and you're like, well, you're asking for it, like that. Those are not. I think
those are not indicators that it's okay for you to grab them or
yes, or whether you help them or not. Like I think when a woman is asking for help, like recognizing that, and as other women around, like help, being, like again, like there's power in numbers, right? So it's just like gathering other people to like be there and helping that person, whoever it is, I think that's really important. And again, just like we said, looking within your own family, right? And like learning about this, and like, I mean, it's definitely like after I watched the video, it's just like, wow, there's so many things that, just stuff that I want to know more about it. And I want to figure out like if there are situations, because there will be in lots of different situations, right? And so it's just like, again, like if you have never been in a situation, you might have a little bit shock from seeing something happen. But I think the more that we learn about it and figure out how to help those around us, those that are happening, like, again, this is physical abuse. There's like emotional abuse and psychological, like there's lots of other abuse that does happen that are just as bad, right? Because some of that results in suicide, right? And so it's just like, even though it's not a person like, hitting another person, like the emotional abuse can really have other repercussions as well.
Yeah.
So Tria says, I do hope technology will bring awareness and changes the future of the Hmong community. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it really has. I think, again, I think one thing that I was maybe disappointed in is like not anybody over there, like not any, and it's not like they have to, but nobody with the platform speaking up over there, like I guess I wish we've had some of that, just recognizing like we don't stand for this, and you know what I mean? Because I feel like some of the bigger celebrities would have
some people were being called out to make statements, and I think I remember reading some of the comments, and I think it's like split half, right? Like some people really want them to make statements.
Yeah.
And then some people are like, well, they don't have to because it's not, like it doesn't involve them and whatnot. But I think when you have a platform to bring awareness to something, whether, I think you should.
Yeah, I agree. Even if you're not, right, because it's not like you're having an advocate for like every post has to be, but I think because you're a person of influence, and this is a big deal, right? And again, this is something that was on there, but it happens behind closed doors a lot, right? And so I think, again, like I do feel, I think that's why we got on, because it's like we do have a platform. And so it's just like I would be really sad if we didn't take the opportunity to address and talk about it, because I feel like if you're a person of influence, especially some of our, like very popular Hmong stars over there, it's just like to stay silent is to, allow it and say that it's okay. And that's not, it doesn't, it doesn't impact me. It doesn't matter. So I'm not going to speak up about it.
Yeah. Nope. I 100% agree.
So Gambal says, as a multi-generational community, we need healthier family relationships and communications, more conversations. I tell my kids, daughter and sons, that if they ever find themselves in an abusive, unhealthy relationship, they are always welcome to come back. They will always have a home. Parents need to provide that security for our kids, among other things. Yeah. Completely agree. And I think the communication piece is so key, like dealing with emotions, talking about emotions, processing emotions. Mm-hmm. I think that is so key in like dealing with just each other and people and how we react to things, and also recognizing that as parents, we set the tone for our kids and we make things okay or not okay, right? And of course, as as people, we're imperfect and we're going to do things that probably traumatize our kids in one way or another. But I think it's a constant of just like recognizing when we are less than, and like recognizing that, like, I don't know, you probably seen that picture of like the intergenerational trauma where like the dad is, or maybe the grandfather is yelling at the dad and dad yells at the, and then like and so it's just like those things happen because someone saw it somewhere, right? Yeah. And so it's just like someone heard it directly or they saw it and felt like it was okay, so then it gets passed down and stuff. And again, we're all, I've yelled at my kids, and so it's just like those are the things that but then what you do after that, right? Like, how do you fix that? Do you let them continue with those feelings of like not feeling safe, or do you find a way to be like, okay, I need to reconcile that, I need to fix that, and then I need to deal with my own of like how I deal with that next time, so that I don't do that and make my kids feel a certain way, and I think like all parents need to do that, and even parents like now, right? Like it's just like our parents who can understand that and recognize that, just knowing like, how do I reconcile at this point with my kids, and how do I help that relationship, and how do I just prepare some of those things, but continuing to improve.
Yeah. I think as a community, though, I feel like we have gotten a lot better at that relationship within your family. I feel like, at least for me, I feel like as I've gotten older, my relationships with my siblings and my cousin brothers who want that change in our relationship, like I think we're all trying. The people who want to try, I think we're all trying to like understand each other's perspective, be a little bit more compassionate and have more grace for each other. Where the ones who aren't willing or not ready to be a part of that change, like you will know instantly who those people are the minute you talk to them. So, I think we are slowly getting better at building that space. It really starts at home. It really starts within your own home because you can't create a space outside if, again, like within your own family, right? I think you can try, but it all really starts with you as an individual creating that space for yourself and for other people around you. So,
Okay. All right, so we are going to leave you guys with the National Domestic Violence Hotline. It is open 24 hours a day, and there comes in over 200 plus languages through interpretation services. The number is 800-799-7233. And then if you want to text, you can just text START to 88788. So of course we know that is a service that is here in the U.S., but we feel like that is just as important, and we would hope that there's stuff that's abroad as well. But all we can really do, again, at the end of the day, is like start within our family, start within our community here in the U.S., and continue to help support and talk about this, right? Like I think, again, I think part of what we always talk about is just like having those conversations. And like if we don't talk about things, then big did you all understand the problems, big did you all like figure out how do we still continue to have conversations. And then sometimes it might feel like we just talk a lot about things, but it's just like we talk about it, we process it, we get different ideas, we share different ideas, and then we learn how to continue to improve.
Yeah. Agree. All right. It. I know we're at the hour, and it's been so long since we've seen all of you. So thank you for tuning in, and hopefully we will have another episode soon. We haven't really planned out this year yet. So, we'll hopefully see y'all soon, whether in person or on social media.
Okay.
Have
a good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.